I said it at the end of this season, and I'll say it right now because it's the start of March, it's the start of a new month, the start of the first real month of the NFL offseason. And we're going to learn a lot about how this team sees next year and where they are at based on what they do in the offseason, right? We can debate all the live long day about what we feel the Browns should do at certain positions, right? Me and you, we can go at it on the internet all day. At the end of the day, we don't make the decisions. Andrew Berry makes the decisions. And when it comes to Andrew Berry, he's not going to tell, because one, it would be very bad strategy. He would be a terrible GM if he did. He's not going to go up in a press conference and explain his intentions to the entire world before the offseason, right? So right now, we have no clue how Andrew Berry and this front office and the coaching staff in total really feel about this team. You can't really go off of what they say in press conferences because there are strategic reasons why you would say certain things in press conferences. There are strategic reasons why you would say certain things online, right? Like there are real reasons that are used all the time in the NFL on why teams would not be super truthful at the end of the year about how they view their team. But they cannot lie when it comes to how they act, what they do. The action matters. So I'm going to bring up some Browns players or guys who are on the Browns in 2021 and look into what it means if they do or don't bring these guys back, because I think these are the guys you can see if the Browns do or don't try to keep, where the Browns are feeling about where this roster is at, right? Do they feel like they need to rebuild again? Do they feel like they blew their window, right? They were obviously building for a Super Bowl window for 2021, which they smoked that year. That year they wasted it. In 2022. 2021, 2022, you normally get 2 years as a window in the NFL, and those were the 2 years that they were going for. Now, the question really that we all have right now is, did 2021, and how bad and well under expectations 2021 was, did that reset expectations entirely? Did they see that season as an injury-riddled season that does not speak on what they're going to do in the future, so are just going to run it back and just try it again and hope they get better luck? Or did they see a reason to go all in after that year? These players are going to tell us. Number one player that you can look at, Jarvis Landry. What they do with Jarvis Landry is going to be a cap decision, right? Now, I don't think this is going to be the most revealing transaction, right? Because at the end of the day, even if I felt like the Browns had a successful year in 2021, I also felt like Jarvis Landry probably wasn't going to be back in the offseason. But I was kind of hoping that would coincide with a leap that Donovan Peoples-Jones was going to make that he never made. Now we're in this interesting spot to where the only two receivers of any value that you have on your roster right now under contract other than Jarvis Landry are Donovan Peoples-Jones and Anthony Schwartz. If this is a team that is trying to win now, like this year, maybe that $15 million for just 1 year Jarvis Landry doesn't hurt as much, especially in a free agent market, in a position to where the market feels like it's going to be hostile. I don't know how the rest of the NFL wide receivers are feeling, but I can go based off of how other wide receivers feel about what the Browns did. And I haven't found a single skill position player that has defended what the Browns did in when it comes to the Odell Beckham situation, right? Like, that's just going to be a thing, right? The Browns took a gamble that when they cut Odell, that he was not going to have a good year after that he was going to be such a mess that, like, it wasn't going to work out. And the gamble when you do that is, hey, we needed to get rid of the guy. You got rid of him. You know, it got weird at the end of that whole thing. And then you had to get rid of him for nothing, which made the optics on it worse. Whatever the reality of the situation is, the optics on this thing are terrible because he won the Super Bowl. Well, he was a part of a winning Super Bowl team and a big part of it. So the optics around the league, especially at wide receiver, not going to be in your favor. It's going to be very hard to find people who want to come to the Browns at value. Now, obviously, that means the top guys. I think that means also for that mid-range of wide receivers, you might have to overpay, because if you're a mid-ranger with 2 or 3 teams on the deal in front of you, maybe you choose the Browns if the other 2 aren't competitive, like competitive teams. But if you're getting competitive offers from competitive teams, I don't know how highly the Browns rank on that list, but optically, it feels like the Browns are going to be at the bottom of that list. And it has to do with the whole Odell situation. It also has to do with the fact that you had a quarterback who put out a QBR of 27 out of 31 this year, which is not going to attract any wide receivers. A QB who, again, the narrative out on him right now and the word out on him nationally, and this is what they're going to know is what's national, they're not local, is he can't throw to wide receivers. Now, I think he can throw to wide receivers. I just think he has other issues. Like, it ain't just about wide receivers, but that's the narrative, right? The Browns have a quarterback who does not like to throw to wide receivers, and they have a coach who does not like to throw to wide receivers. This is not going to be a attractive situation for a lot of guys. Some guys it might, right? But for all the guys I see people posting pictures about on Twitter, So you have to ask yourself, of all the people who, and we don't even know for a fact if Jarvis actually wants to be here. I know he said on Twitter he wants to be here, but we don't know what he actually feels like, because you have to imagine that whole situation probably rubbed him the wrong way, and the way he's reacted since makes it seem such. But if he does want to stay here, you have to ask yourself, can you get somebody better than Jarvis Landry for $15 or $13 million? Like, in that $13, $15 million range, are you going to get somebody better than Jarvis Landry to come here? Are you going to be able to sign? I know there are better wide receivers in free agency than Jarvis Landry, but are you going to be able to get him here at that price? And are they going to buy in? Because you got to overpay. They're probably not going to buy in. So that's an interesting one, right? Don't know what the Browns going to do with that whole Jarvis Landry situation. It seems like they're trying to move money elsewhere. I don't know what they do with Jarvis Landry right there, because that's an interesting one, right? That has everything to do with what happened in 2021. Before 2021, they would have moved on from Jarvis Landry, signed a replacement. They would have had no problem doing that because the perceptions weren't as bad. But this 2021 season did a lot of damage on that front. So now it's a completely different situation with Jarvis Landry. Somebody who's a completely different situation, and not for a good reason, Austin Hooper is the next guy I'm going to talk about. What do you do with Austin Hooper? Like, for a team that does not have cap space, a lot of people are willing to, even cap people are willing to eat the dead money for Austin Hooper, because they feel like he's been a net negative. They feel like he's taken away targets from a better player in David Njoku. He's not really a great blocker. Like, he doesn't really bring anything great to the table, and he's paid way too much. Austin Hooper's probably gone. I would say he's on the chopping block. And if they cut Austin Hooper, that doesn't really say anything about where the Browns are or where they're going to be. But I think it's just something that they need to think about getting rid of. Now, this is one. Jack Conklin. What are the Browns going to do with Jack Conklin? Because Jack Conklin, when he's played, he's been great. He barely plays, though. And that's the problem. He always gets hurt. I know people are worried about Jadeveon Clowney and his injury history, and we're going to talk about that. I know people worry about Denzel Ward and his injury history. But Jack Conklin. Now, they've already done something about Jack Conklin because they've restructured that deal. So they're pretty much kicking that can down the road. I'm interested to see if they even go further with Jack because it seems like they have a replacement on hand. If, let's say, internally you feel like the Browns need to retool this thing and rebuild before they can really be a real contender. If somebody's willing to give you anything for Jack Conklin, I'll be willing to give it up because I don't think he's going to be a part of this team's future for much longer. Next guy we're going to talk about is David Njoku. This is one that I think is going to be very telling because on one hand, he was your most productive tight end. He's the one dude Baker could get the ball to consistently. But on the other hand, even though all of that was true, right? Even though he caught the ball at a higher rate, was more productive with the targets that he got, had more yards, he's not the greatest athlete in the world, but he's a better athlete than Austin Hooper. He's really a great end zone threat. And the fact that all of those things are true about David Njoku. We have known these things to be true about David Njoku for at least the last 2 years. And for the fact that David Njoku is a much more reliable target than Austin Hooper, who drops the ball a lot more than people think. And people already think Austin Hooper drops the ball. I'm saying he's even worse. You have to ask yourself, why was David Njoku not getting the bulk of the targets, right? Even though all of those things are true. Think about that. Everything I said positive about David Njoku is not even arguable. It's objectively true. You can look at it on the football field. And they still gave him targets to Austin Hooper. Why? What is it about David Njoku that even when he is playing better, they don't want to give him the ball? Even when he's a better fit, they don't want to give him the ball. Or at least at the same clip that they want to give a number one tight end. Now, maybe some of that's them trying to justify a contract. I would like to not assume that because that is a very, I don't understand the thinking as a coach. Why would you try to justify somebody else's contract, right? It's not like this is a Bill Belichick situation where Bill signs the players. Like, Kevin ain't got nothing to do with that. So why are we doing? Why are all of these targets going to Austin? Unless it's like Baker Mayfield determined to throw the ball to Austin Hooper, which sometimes it does happen, but not enough to where Hooper should have enough targets here. I don't even think that's Baker's fault. That's more or less they have him in a position where he's a number one read a lot. Why? Why him, not David Njoku? Why? And even though I 100%, 1,000% would bring David Njoku back, sign him, I don't have confidence that the team feels that way because, again, when they were in position to get this man the ball, they said no. Why should I feel like when they did that, again, actions speak louder than words, when they had him on the team, they did not give him the ball? Why would I feel like that's somebody they want to bring back? Because it doesn't feel like it to me that they want to bring him back. I would love to be wrong on that, but it just doesn't seem like they believe in David Njoku as much as the numbers believe in David Njoku. And that's puzzling to me. I don't understand that. But if they do bring back David Njoku, I would feel a lot better, right? I think bringing back David Njoku would do wonders for the locker room. Just not because David's like a locker room genius or anything like that, but it would be nice for the skilled players, right, in the locker room who are a little bit upset about all that happened in 2021 to have a guy be brought back, right? Have a Jarvis be brought back. But I just don't feel like that's what they're going to do because they've had these two dudes on the roster all year for the last 2 years, and they ain't got him the ball. and ain't really been nobody to turn them from getting the ball. So David Njoku, another guy who's probably not coming back. I hope he does. I hope they do work something out. But again, the Browns are pretty proactive about these things, right? They usually take care of them before they hit free agency for the players that they're willing to either franchise tag or spend big money on, right? Like Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. I've gone through this before. David Njoku's about to just walk into free agency, and have you heard a single thing about his contract status? The more each day goes on and we ain't hearing nothing, nothing's happening. Right? Like that, just nothing's happening. So I don't think he's coming back. And if he doesn't come back, that points me in a direction. Let's like we go all out on replacing him. But if he doesn't come back, that makes me feel like their number one objective this year isn't to win now. And that they might be thinking of this as a soft reboot. Because if you let Jarvis go, if you cut Hooper, if you trade Conklin, and then you let Njoku walk in free agency, that tells me that you feel like you need to rebuild a little bit, that you feel like what you have on the roster is not good enough to win, and that you can't just run it back. And speaking of run it back, let's talk about Jadeveon Clowney. Because y'all know how I feel about this. I would love to bring back Jadeveon Clowney, just so Myles Garrett can have another excellent year, and he can have another excellent year. But let's be realistic about this. It only made sense for the Browns to sign Jadeveon Clowney at the number that they did last year because the Browns thought they were going to be a Super Bowl contender. So again, if the Browns are aggressive about bringing back Clowney, and especially if the Browns bring back Clowney on a one-year deal again, that tells me they think they can win now. If they, or it's something that could point to that. I don't want to say one decision's going to make all of the, no, let me rephrase that because people are going to take that out of context. If the Browns, along with other moves, like go at Jadeveon Clowney with a one-year deal or something like that, yeah, I feel like they're trying to win now. Like it's one of those moves on top of other things that would make me feel like, okay, they feel like they can run it back and win games. Do I agree with that? It depends. It depends on who we're talking about. So that's the one that's if they extend Jadeveon Clowney for like 3 years, that I don't know. I don't know if they do that. But also, I don't know what that says, right? Because Jadeveon's older. Like, if you keep Jadeveon on the roster and he's older, I feel like you're trying to win now. You know, if you keep Jack Conklin as well, if you keep all of these older, like Jack Conklin, Jarvis, all these guys that you keep that are older, that could be gone if you wanted them to, Austin Hooper included. But all those guys, if you keep them, okay, maybe they are trying to win now. Maybe they just feel like they have to run it back. But if you let a bulk of these guys go, if you let Jadeveon walk, if you let Njoku walk, Njoku, if you bring back Njoku, that just tells me you just like Njoku and you want to keep him around. I don't know if that tells you about the team's future because Njoku's still young. But if you cut Hoop and Jarvis and you let Njoku walk and you don't try to sign Jadeveon Clowney and you either draft his replacement or his replacement's like 24 years old, like a retread replacement, kind of like a similar situation to Takk McKinley, that tells me that they're trying to rebuild. You see what I mean? Like what happens with a handful of players in the offseason that the Browns had under contract in 2021 can tell us a lot about what the Browns' goals are for 2022. I don't think they're going to go full tank. They're not bad enough to tank. They have like 5 Pro Bowlers on defense. They can't tank. But maybe they feel like they need to rebuild. Maybe they feel like the contracts this year in free agency, the objective isn't to get a contract just to get a player on the roster you feel like can be the difference on a Super Bowl run. It might end up being, hey, we need just better players, or we just need more young talent, and we need to shift some things out in the locker room. Like, whatever they feel like is the problem, we will find out based on how they handle certain players in free agency. And it's going to be interesting to see. I'm kind of nervous. I'm kind of worried. I don't want to go through another rebuild. But also, you know, if a rebuild is necessary, you got to be swift with that decision, and you got to do it now. You can't really go in between with these things, because that's how you end up rebuilding for 20 years, is if you don't make a real decision about this thing. But that's just my thoughts. I want to talk about some of these guys I felt like are on the bubble. Conklin's really not on the bubble. He's just a guy that as he gets older and more injured, and like as a player gets older, they're just going to get injured more. Like that's just what anatomy would tell you. Then I just don't see his use. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's a great right tackle, but if he's never going to be available, I'd rather get James Hudson out there and get him some reps. I liked what he did at the end of last year. I feel like he could be cool. But that's my thoughts on this whole free agency situation. Let me know what you think. What direction do you think the Browns are going to go at in this offseason? Are they just going to run it back and feel like they could win the Super Bowl? Are they going to double down and sign some big names here to put this team over the top to cover up some holes? Or are they going to start to, you know, tear down some pieces so they can replace them in the future? We'll see. We'll see what happens here with the Cleveland Browns. But thank you for watching this video. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.